New Zealand's central bank has launched a preemptive strike against soaring housing prices, and there are calls for Australia to follow suit. The Reserve Bank of New Zealand will curb bank lending for the riskier low deposit loans. As house prices in Australia gather momentum, the banking regulator here appears to be reluctant to take responsibility for introducing similar restrictions, while the Reserve Bank hasn't ruled out the measures. Here's finance correspondent Philip Lesker.
On both sides of the Tasman, an increasing number of home buyers are saying the same thing.
The price range and what you're actually getting for the houses is just, we're finding that's, getting a lot for your money.
My feeling is that a lot of properties, while they are nice, are being bought overvalued. So yeah, one has to be careful.
Houses are being priced as though interest rates will never ever go up again, and so inherently I think that's quite dangerous.
Not all New Zealand and Australian cities have hot property markets, but the heat is spreading and both countries share the same banks, which in Australia are competing more aggressively for home loan business.
From what I'm hearing out there at the moment, the banks are, like I said, loosening their belts at the moment, and I think they're back up to some banks are up at the 90% lend again.
Across the capital cities, once again, compared to May last year, we've seen values rise by more than 9%. So we're really seeing buyers come back in the marketplace, values rising. Mostly that can be taken back to lower interest rates.
New Zealand's central bank is trying to take some of the heat out of its markets by targeting riskier low deposit loans. Low deposit home loans are those where a buyer borrows more than 80% of the purchase price. ANZ has told the ABC that around 1 in 3 new home loans in New Zealand is for a low deposit loan. From October, that will be restricted to 1 in 10, so banks will have to turn away many hopeful borrowers. And there are calls for Australia's policymakers to consider similar action.
It's a way of basically regulating where a potential bubble is developing housing without necessarily raising rates and crushing the rest of the economy. So I think it's a very sensible tool to have.
It's a tool the banks don't favour for their Australian business.
In an attempt to potentially cool one market, do you have unintended consequences in other markets?
Some see other motives for the bank's resistance to restricting low deposit loans.
Because they make a lot of money. If you have a look in New Zealand, for example, even though the capital requirement would probably be higher, the fact is that high loan-to-valuation ratio lending, they charge a premium rate for it.
Just who would take responsibility for introducing restrictions on home lending is unclear. The banking regulator APRA would not comment to the ABC on the appropriateness of home loan curbs.
I think they batted the court very fairly back to say this is an issue for the Reserve Bank to handle, and my reading is the Reserve Bank aren't ruling it out but aren't ruling it in.
So it's business as usual for the banks and potential borrowers, but it may not be enough to land that dream home.